The message came in at 7 a.m., right as I was pouring coffee. Payment for safe deposit box number 47, Westgate Bank. I had never opened a box, never even been to Westgate Bank. But what froze me wasn't the text, it was when I turned toward the kitchen counter. The old music box started playing on its own. The familiar melody suddenly snagged on a harsh note, screeching like metal against glass. When I lifted the box, the felt bottom popped loose, revealing a strange gleaming key. I couldn't explain why that small piece of metal made the air in my familiar kitchen turn icy. The key weighed heavy in my palm, etched with the number 47, a chilling match to the text I had just received. It could have been coincidence if not for the receipt pressed against the bottom of the box. The name in blue ink was clear: Sloane Pierce. The same friend who had slept over at my house dozens of times, who had held me tight in the delivery room, who was the only person I ever trusted outside of family. And now, her name appeared in a place that made no sense, tied to a hidden safe deposit box I had never known existed. Questions crowded my mind. Why had Sloane left a trace here? And why had the music box, a keepsake from my late mother-in-law, been hiding the key that led to this secret? I stepped into the Westgate Bank branch with a strange feeling. The chill of the air conditioner mixed with the musty carpet smell and the rhythmic tapping of heels on tile made me feel like I was walking into a play without a script. The branch manager, a man in his 50s with a striped tie, gave me a polite smile. "Hello, how can I help you today?" I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay calm. "I'd like to access safe deposit box number 47. Here's the key." His brows pinched for a second, his eyes sharp. He checked the screen, then nodded and led me down a long hallway into the basement. The heavy iron door closing behind us made me shiver. The vault was silent, broken only by the beep of his key card and the click of mechanical locks. He handed the key back to me and stepped aside. I slid the shiny key into the lock and turned it. The sharp click sounded like a gunshot inside my chest. The door swung open. No cash, no jewelry. Instead, a thick envelope, a small black USB drive, and a neatly clipped file. My heart pounded as I pulled them out, feeling like I was breaking the law. I opened the file first. It was a warehouse lease contract under the name Coastal Arts Trust, the nonprofit where my husband, Grant, served as executive director. Clear printed lines, legal seals, Grant's signature at the bottom. I reread it, searching for sense. Why would a nonprofit need a separate warehouse outside its headquarters? And why was the paperwork locked away here? Underneath were glossy color photos of receipts for stage equipment, massive LED screens, high-powered projectors, professional sound systems. The listed prices were absurd. With my real estate background, I knew numbers, and when figures were inflated, these invoices screamed one word: fraud. I plugged the USB into my personal laptop from my bag. One folder, one single video file. I clicked. The footage was grainy, silent, from a security camera. In the dark of night, two figures moved quickly inside a warehouse. I couldn't ignore the tall, steady stride of Grant instantly. The other, with long brown hair tied back, was Sloane Pierce. They were unloading large crates stamped with the foundation logo, stacking them onto an unmarked white truck. My chest tightened. This wasn't day work. There was no reason for Grant and Sloane to be secretly moving the foundation's goods at night. I zoomed in, watching their gestures. They worked seamlessly, trading glances, continuing like it was routine. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. This was no suspicion anymore. This was bare truth. But what truth exactly? I replayed the final seconds, where faint light from a street lamp revealed a sign on the brick wall. My breath caught. Charleston Storage, Unit 16B. I flipped back to the contract. The printed address: Charleston Storage, Unit 16B. A cold wave shot through me. The video, the contract, the invoices, they fit together, undeniable. And all of it hidden in a secret vault. The manager watched me from a distance, likely guessing I had found what I came for. I packed the USB and file into my bag, keeping my face calm. "Thank you. I'll return if I need anything." I left the basement and stepped into the blinding noon sunlight, but inside me was only darkness. Driving home, I couldn't stop seeing their faces: Grant, my husband of more than 15 years, and Sloane, the best friend I had treated like a sister. Together, in the quiet of night, moving crates bought with donations from hundreds of people in our community. My phone buzzed. A text from Grant: "I'm busy with the board this afternoon. Don't wait for dinner." The familiar words now carried a different weight. Board meeting or another late-night run to the storage unit? I couldn't tell. I pulled over, taking a deep breath. I had to stay calm. One USB. A handful of inflated invoices. These alone couldn't topple Grant, adored by the community, or Sloan, the clever financial advisor who could spin any story. But I also knew this was the first piece of a larger puzzle, and I couldn't ignore it. The Charleston sun flashed through my windshield like blades of light. From this day on, nothing would ever be the same. I typed the contract's address into my GPS. Charleston Storage, Unit 16B. A red dot blinked on the outskirts of town. My grip tightened on the wheel. If I wanted the truth, I had to go there. And it was clear, once that storage door opened, everything could change forever. I drove out of downtown Charleston into a windless afternoon. The road stretched past vacant lots and rows of weather-beaten storage sheds, their signs sun-faded by southern heat. The GPS guided me to a fenced compound, the metal bars green with moss. The sign read, Charleston Storage, Unit 16B. I steadied my breath. In my bag were the lease contract and the USB that had haunted me all night. If the video was real, behind this door would be more than props. It could hold the entire truth I had to face. The guard squinted from his booth, suspicion in his eyes. I stepped out, smiling politely, voice calm but firm. "I'm here to pick up some pieces for next week's museum exhibit. Here's my authorization." The paper bore the museum's name and a colleague's signature. He scanned it, then nodded, unlocking the gate. The hinges groaned, echoing through the empty lot. Once the gate closed behind me, the weight in my chest grew heavier. There was no turning back. Unit 16B was at the end of the row, its silver-gray roll-up door sealed with a new padlock. I slid in the key, turned, and slowly lifted. The screech of metal scraping filled the air. Light spilled in, revealing stacks of sealed wooden crates and towers of cardboard boxes nearly touching the ceiling. My footsteps echoed on the cold concrete as I entered, like stepping into a forgotten warehouse from a documentary. At the center, unmistakable, giant LED screens still in their boxes, each stamped with the Foundation logo. Nearby, high-powered projectors wrapped in plastic. All brand new, easily worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I ran my hand over the smooth surface, feeling like I was touching live evidence. The Foundation grant ran always begged for donations in the name of art and community. Yet here the equipment sat, hidden in an off-site warehouse, not at the exhibition hall, not at any performance I had ever heard of. I pried open a wooden crate in the corner. Inside weren't props but neatly arranged binders. Receipts, invoices, shipping logs, all meticulously ordered, as if someone had intentionally kept them here, away from the main office. I froze at the sight of two sets of invoices for the same item. One listed, buyer, Coastal Arts Trust. The other, with a lower figure marked as resale, bore the name of an event company, Piermark LLC. The electronic signature at the bottom of the page was so familiar it made me sick. Grant Mercer. And in the right corner, the co-signer, Sloan Pierce. I remembered all those long nights Grant claimed to be busy with meetings, the times Sloan left parties early because a client needed her. Now, it all pieced together into a picture I couldn't mistake. They had formed their own company, bought equipment with Foundation money, then resold it, turning public assets into private profit. I snapped photos of each page with my phone, my hands shaking so badly the images blurred. But I couldn't stop. I needed evidence. I opened more folders, stacks of shipping receipts, bills of lading, even printed emails titled Community Arts Package Westgate Lights. Westgate. The same bank with the secret box where I found the USB. Everything was connected, like a maze built with precision. As I bent down to gather the papers, a noise came from the hallway. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. I hurried to close the box, lowered the door partway, and hid behind a row of cartons. Heavy footsteps echoed, followed by a low male voice. "Check the lock again. We're coming back tonight." Another voice answered, Smooth but calculating. I told Grant already, but he's always careless. We have to clear this shipment tonight, before the board starts asking questions. I didn't need to see her face to know it was Sloane. The metal door rattled a few times, as if they were testing the lock. Then the footsteps faded. I pressed myself into the shadows, cold sweat trickling down my spine. When I was sure they were gone, I slipped out quietly. The roll-up door slammed shut behind me, but in my mind, the sound was a sentence being handed down. In my hands were the invoice photos signed by Grant and Sloane. The words made one thing undeniable. Piermark LLC wasn't an innocent name. It was the shell for everything they were hiding. In my car, my hands still trembling. On the phone screen, the photos glowed, each number, each ink mark, each name. Indisputable. That event company belonged to the two people I had trusted most. The Charleston sky blazed red with sunset. In the rearview mirror, I saw myself, eyes no longer naive. I had crossed a line. The truth I had touched would pull me further, deeper, into a confrontation I had never imagined. I spent the entire night tossing and turning, unable to close my eyes. The twin invoices, the bold signatures of Grant and Sloane, the name Piermark LLC, they floated in front of me every time I blinked. There was no doubt I needed someone sharp enough to make sense of those papers. The first person I thought of was Evelyn Hart. Evelyn wasn't only a skilled real estate attorney. She was someone I had worked with on a complicated deal years ago. Sharp eyes, the habit of reading every clause like she was cracking a code. If anyone could tell me what those documents really meant, it was her. The next morning, I met her at a small cafe near Charleston's financial district. The place was quiet, dark wooden tables, warm yellow lights, perfect for a discreet talk. Evelyn walked in, tall, shoulder-length hair neat, a gray suit jacket making her look both simple and razor-sharp. She set her bag down and looked at me. "From your voice on the phone, I can tell this is serious." I slid the folder and my phone with the invoice photos across the table. "Evelyn, I need your eyes on this. It's not just family drama. I'm afraid it's much bigger." She opened the file, flipping page after page. Her long fingers moved steadily, her eyes scanning every detail. After a few silent minutes, she looked up, voice low and firm. "Roxanne, this isn't sloppy accounting. This is embezzlement. See? One side purchases through the nonprofit, the other sells through Piermark. It's essentially self-dealing." I gripped my coffee cup, the scalding liquid doing nothing to warm me. "You mean, they signed off on buying equipment for the foundation, then sold it back through their own company?" Evelyn nodded, her gaze steady. "Exactly. And the way they covered it is what matters. Look at this recent grant contract." She pulled a clipped stack from the folder, handing it to me. On page 4, a bold clause read, "Special installations, authorizing use of funds for specialized equipment purchases without public bidding." The community always praised Grant as dedicated and innovative. And yet, he had personally drafted a loophole for siphoning funds. "Is this legal?" I asked, my throat tight. Evelyn shook her head slowly. "Technically, they could argue it adds flexibility. But in reality, it's an open door for fraud. If the board approved the clause, liability gets spread out. But notice who drafted it in the first place." I lowered my eyes to the italicized line at the bottom. The familiar name hit me, Grant Mercer. My chest clenched. For years I had believed Grant was the man carrying the community, a model principal, a devoted foundation leader. Now his name sat at the heart of a scheme. Evelyn slid the papers back toward me, her voice dropping, almost like she feared being overheard. "Roxanne, what you're holding is the core of something big. This isn't just betrayal. It could be criminal." My hands trembled. My stomach twisted. I thought of Benjamin, my son. To him, his father was a role model, a hero. How could I tell him that his idol was behind a system of fraud? Evelyn placed her hand on the table, her eyes softening. "Be careful. If you want to go further, we need more evidence. Right now, you've got fragments, not the whole picture. I'll find more." "But Evelyn, do you think Grant could really go this far?" She sighed. "I've seen it before. When power, money, and reputation collide, people can become the worst version of themselves." Her words sliced through the last illusions I'd been clinging to. I left the cafe, Stepping into the harsh noon Sunday traffic roared by, but all I heard was the pounding of my heart. I knew what I had to do. I had to follow the money. If special installations was just the surface, then beneath it were layers of transactions. And each layer would drag Grant and Sloan deeper. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and pulled up the city's public database. Contracts, funding records all searchable. I typed in Coastal Arts Trust, Piermerk LLC, and Grant Mercer. Pages of results appeared. I carefully saved each file, marking every overlapping deal. One city council grant from 6 months ago stood out. In the appendix, the exact special installations clause appeared. I scrolled to the bottom. The signer Grant again. And the note, financial advisor Sloan Pierce. There was no doubt now. They had built an entire mechanism to siphon funds. I arrived home at dusk. The last light painted streaks of orange across the wall, stretching to the music box resting neatly on the table. I stared at it, hearing in my memory the melody catching on that one wrong note. From now on, any sound it made would remind me of the secrets lurking beneath the surface of our seemingly ordinary life. I hadn't even taken off my coat when the doorbell rang. Grant stepped out of his office, smiling easily. Must be Sloan. She said she'd drop off some pastries she just tried a new recipe for. My chest tightened. They hardly bothered to hide their closeness anymore. I opened the door. Sloan stood there, holding a warm box of pastries, the smell of cinnamon and apples spilling sweetly into the hall, but her calm eyes sent a chill through me. "Roxanne, I know you like this flavor," Sloan said lightly. I took it, forcing a strained smile. "Thanks. Come in." The three of us sat around the dining table. Dinner was simple: grilled meat, salad, a few slices of warm bread. Grant started the conversation, his voice full of energy. "The upcoming community light exhibition will definitely be the highlight of the year. Everyone in the foundation is excited. I've already spoken with the board, and the budget is approved." I looked at him, keeping my tone steady. "How big is the budget?" He set his fork down, raising an eyebrow. "Don't worry, everything is legitimate. There's a special clause for this project. The whole city will remember it." The words sounded harmless, but they tightened my chest. The pattern was unmistakable too well. That special clause was crafted to open the door to fraud. Still, I stayed silent, listening as they carried on. Sloan chimed in, her voice sweet. "I think we should add a laser projection across the river. The audience would be amazed." Grant nodded, eyes gleaming. "Great idea. I'll present it to the board this week." I watching the two of them exchange ideas with practiced ease, while I felt like nothing more than a spectator in my own kitchen. Inside, anger tangled with sorrow, but outside, I kept my smile, adding polite comments now and then. After dinner, Sloan stood up. "Mind if I use the bathroom for a moment?" I pointed toward the hallway. Her heels clicked lightly on the wood floor as she went in. I turned to clear the table, but my eyes stayed fixed on the little box. It sat motionless, almost as if it too were watching. Then the sound began. The familiar gentle tune, and then, the same wrong note. I whipped around. The bathroom door was half closed, and Sloan stood inside, her eyes locked on the box. Her stare lingered too long, not like someone listening to music. She recovered quickly, turning on the faucet, letting the water run to mask her unease. That moment pierced the veil. She had noticed something. And I understood then the box was more than a keepsake. When Sloan came back out, her face was calm again. She smiled, lifting the pastry box. "I should head out. I have a client meeting in the morning." Grant walked her to the door, wished her good night, as if nothing at all was unusual. I stood in the kitchen, heart heavy as stone. Later that night, while Grant was in the shower, I opened the desk drawer and pulled out a small white device, a brand new AirTag I had bought earlier. My hands trembled, but my mind was cold, focused. I picked up his car keys, slipped the AirTag onto the ring, hiding it snugly between the metal loops. No one would notice something so small. I closed the drawer, my heart pounding. When Grant came out, his hair damp, I was at the table pretending to read a real estate magazine. He smiled, resting a hand on my shoulder. "You're up late." "I wanted to check some new projects," I answered evenly. He kissed my forehead, completely unaware the game had changed. From that moment, every step he took away from home would leave a trace. And I would follow, until the truth had nowhere left to hide. That night, in the living room, my phone on the table showing a small green dot moving steadily out of our neighborhood. The AirTag inside Grant's key ring was working. His route went south through familiar streets, then suddenly veered toward the old harbor, an area long abandoned, with only a few warehouses sometimes used for storage. I grabbed my coat and drove out. Darkness blanketed the suburbs, street lights flickering sporadically. My heart raced, part fear of being caught, part dread of what I might see. Near the docks, I parked in an empty lot, cut the engine, and waited in the dark. From a distance, headlights swept across the water. It was Grant's car. I recognized his silhouette as he stepped out with several other men. Minutes later, Sloane appeared, moving quickly, her voice carried faintly by the night wind. They opened an old warehouse, pulling out wooden crates stamped with the Coastal Arts Trust logo. My body shook. Those crates looked identical to the ones in the USB footage. Under the dim yellow lights, Grant and Sloane lifted them together, loading them onto a waiting white truck. What shocked me most was the bold logo on the truck's side. The name of a luxury hotel chain I knew from real estate circles. I raised my phone, hands trembling, hitting record. Even zoomed in, the camera captured clear images of the crates being stacked. I held my breath, terrified a single sound would give me away. Are you sure? They won't check this again. Sloane's voice drifted in the wind, just audible. Don't worry, Grant answered firmly. They think it's a community exhibition package. On paper, everything looks clean. I bit down hard, my chest ready to burst. They were blatantly turning equipment bought with foundation money into commercial rentals. I left as the truck rolled out. I couldn't risk staying longer. Driving away, my hands felt numb, barely distinguishing gas from brake. Back home, I opened my laptop and messaged Alex, a friend in the museum's IT department. We'd worked together often, and I trusted his discretion. I sent him photos of the crates, the hotel logo, asking if he could check for any contracts tied to Pure Merc. Within 15 minutes, Alex called back. He had located vendor archive contract records and preserved email headers referencing a community art package. He flagged them to Reese's oversight audit, which could lawfully request the full contents. My grip tightened on the phone, my heart sinking. Westgate. The name from that strange morning text. The bank holding the secret box. And now, printed in a hotel contract. Like a closed circle, every lead came back to Westgate. No coincidence. It was a system, a scheme linking bank, warehouse, foundation, and now hotels. I sat in silence, ears ringing, until Alex added, Roxanne, I can extract the full emails if you want. But be careful. This could cost people their reputations. Maybe even their freedom. I thanked him, my voice shaking. After hanging up, I sat in the dark, the house still as stone. Only the clock ticked. My eyes drifted to the keepsake on the table. That off-key note replayed in my mind, a reminder that I was on the right track but also stepping into the center of a storm. When Grant returned, it was nearly morning. I pretended to sleep, but each sound rang sharp. The lock turning, shoes on the floor, his coat on the hanger. He came into the bedroom, sighed, and lay beside me. His breathing slowed, carrying the salt of the sea and the faint stench of oil from the docks. I stared at the ceiling in the dark. What I held was no longer just proof of a husband's betrayal, but a link in a massive fraud. And this game wasn't over. It had only begun. It took me nearly 2 days to steady my breath after that night at the docks. The crates with the foundation's logo, the hotel truck, the contract bearing the name Westgate lights, they haunted me. I couldn't take this on alone. I needed someone inside the system, someone high enough to be heard but clean enough not to be compromised. The name that came to me was Reese Henderson. I had heard of him at a city reception. Reese had just been appointed to the foundation's oversight board last year, after 30 years as a district attorney. People said he never accepted gifts, never bowed to political pressure. A man like that, if he believed me, would be a strong ally. I sent a brief email, requesting only a private meeting because there's an issue concerning the foundation's transparency. I didn't expect him to reply quickly, but just a few hours later, his response appeared in my inbox. Tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock, my office. Come alone. Reese's office was on the 13th floor of an old red brick building, once the district attorney's headquarters. When I walked in, the atmosphere still carried its stern weight. Sealed wooden cabinets, a tidy desk, the yellow glow of an antique lamp shining onto thick case files. Mr. Henderson rose to greet me, tall, silver-haired, his eyes sharp as blades. He extended his hand, gripped firmly, then invited me to sit. I read your email. Now, tell me clearly, what is the issue? I opened my bag, pulling out the stack of papers and the USB drive. My voice trembled slightly, but each word was clear. I fear the foundation is being exploited. These are duplicate invoices, irregular contracts, and a video. I need you to look. Reese stayed silent, putting on his reading glasses, scanning page by page. His eyes darkened when he saw Grant's and Sloane's signatures on the invoices. Then he plugged the USB into his computer and played the video. On screen, Grant and Sloane were unloading crates in the night. He stared, arms crossed, expression frozen. When the final frame showed the storage sign, he shut the screen, placing his glasses on the desk. I suspected, he sighed, speaking slowly. I suspected for a long time that special installations was just a cover. The budget for that item skyrocketed within a year. But I had no proof. I clenched my hands together. Now you've seen it. But I know this video alone isn't enough. There's no sound. Publicly, they could claim it's just routine storage. Reese looked directly at me, voice steady, correct. To convince the board and the community, we need more than images. We need undeniable evidence, recorded conversations, financial records, original contracts. You've got the first piece, but we need the rest to complete the picture. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Then can you help me launch an audit? He folded his arms, thinking for a long moment, then nodded. I'll request an audit, but it has to be discreet. We can't let Grant or Sloane catch wind, or they'll erase everything. I'll assemble a small, trusted team. But you, he paused, meeting my eyes. You must keep digging. Find everything you can, meeting minutes, emails, any related documents. I swallowed hard, fear mixing with a flicker of hope. I have a friend in the museum's IT department. He helped me retrieve emails between Pierre Merck and a hotel chain. The contract mentions the project name, Westgate Lights. Reese frowned, drumming his fingers on the desk. Westgate. Quite a coincidence. Or the missing link. That name ties to the bank where you found the safe deposit box. It's also the project label for equipment rentals. This is no small matter. I know. And I won't stop. He leaned back, sighing. I believe you, Roxanne. But remember, people behind schemes like this are rarely just a principal and a financial advisor. They have networks. The deeper you go, the more careful you must be. I gripped the USB tightly, my chest surging. I now had an ally inside. But I also knew the road ahead would be far harsher. Mr. Reese stood, walking me to the door. Before I left, he called softly. You did the right thing bringing this here. But Roxanne, you'll need audio. If that video had recorded their conversations, that would be the decisive blow. I returned home after meeting Reese, his words echoing in my head. They pierced straight into the worry that had weighed on me for days. I had images, invoices, contracts, but all could still be explained away. Only spoken words, undeniable dialogue, could strip the truth bare. That night, I sat alone in the living room. The lamp cast light onto the lacquered lid resting quietly on the wooden table. I carefully opened the lid, listening to the familiar tune slip again on that same note, like a secret refusing to sleep. I turned the box in my hands, my fingers tracing the metal details. When the light hit just right, I noticed a tiny dot, no bigger than a pinhead, hidden in the carved design on the lid. My breath caught. That wasn't decoration. It was a microphone hole. Shaking, I examined the bottom. In the innermost corner, faint numbers were etched. With a magnifying glass, I read 7/12, 23:45. Date and time. I froze. That was the exact timestamp from the video, when Grant and Sloane were moving crates at the storage unit. A week earlier, Grant had taken the music box to his office, saying he wanted to fix the off-key note. He'd even kept it in his car for days as a kind of good luck charm before big installations. If the timestamp matched that night, the box might have been with him close enough to catch their voices. I leaned back, mind reeling. The box wasn't just a keepsake. It had been a gift from Grant's mother on our 5th wedding anniversary. I remembered how she laughed, saying she was obsessed with gadgets, always tinkering with little mechanical things. No one fully understood her odd passion. And now, years after her passing, I discovered she had left me a music box disguised as a recorder. A shiver raced down my spine. Had she suspected her son? Or had it been simple curiosity? I couldn't know. But one thing was clear. This box could record sound, and it might have captured what happened at the warehouse that night. If true, I held the most valuable evidence of all. But how could I be certain? I needed an expert. The next morning, I called Alex from the museum. His voice was incredulous as I described it. A music box with a hidden mic? Roxanne, that sounds like something out of a movie. I know, I cut in tense. But Alex, I saw it with my own eyes. There's even a date and time etched in. Do you know anyone who can help me check? He paused, then replied. In Savannah, there's an audio restoration specialist named Mason Clark. He used to work for the FBI before retiring to run his own lab. If anyone can extract data from an old device, it's him. Hearing that, I felt a wave of relief, like grabbing hold of a lifeline. I wrote down the address, carefully wrapped the little box in a soft cloth, and placed it in my bag. That afternoon, I drove along the coastal road toward Savannah. The Atlantic wind rushed in through the window, salty and cool, but my chest felt heavy. I thought of Grant, his casual smile while talking about the exhibition, of Sloane with her unnerving calm. They lived like nothing was wrong, while I carried a storm inside me. The drive to Savannah took nearly 2 hours, though I barely felt the time. My mind clung to a single question. What had this box heard? By the time I arrived, dusk had settled. Mason Clark's small brick house stood apart on the outskirts, a wooden sign out front. Audio restoration and forensics. I stepped in, the scent of old wood and electronics mingling. Both warm and exacting. Mason, a man in his 60s with white hair and round glasses, looked at me, then at the box I placed on the table. You say it's a music box? I gave a brief explanation, keeping only safe details. He listened intently, then pulled out a tiny screwdriver. Strange. But if you're right, this could be a covert recorder. Let's see. He unscrewed it carefully, his aged hands steady. When the lid came off, it revealed not just the usual music mechanism, but a small circuit board, old yet intact. Mason frowned. This isn't amateur work. Whoever made this had serious mechanical skill. I thought of Grant's mother. She had once repaired clocks, even built a small lathe in her garage. A chill swept through me, as if she were still present, guiding me now. Mason examined further, then turned to me. Looks like it once recorded data, but I can't say yet if any audio files remain. Memory like this degrades with time. I'll need a few days to try recovery. I steadied my hands, masking my impatience. I understand. As long as there's hope. He studied me, curiosity and gravity in his gaze. You brought this at the right time. If there really is audio, it could change everything. I nodded, though fear churned in me. Change everything. To what extent? Driving back, darkness settled over the rustling trees. My chest weighed heavy as I gripped the wheel. In the passenger seat lay my bag, now empty, the keepsake in Mason's hands, ready to reveal the secret it had held for years. And maybe the answer had been with me all along. I had simply never thought to look. I returned to Savannah after 2 days of suffocating tension. Mason called, his voice low but tinged with excitement. Roxanne, you should come. I've managed to recover part of the data. When I stepped into his workshop, the air still smelled of machine oil and solder. The off-key tune sat neatly on the metal table, its lid removed, wires and old circuits exposed. Beside it, A computer screen displayed a stretched-out audio waveform. Mason looked up, removed his glasses, and spoke softly, "It's still alive. You're lucky." The device seemed broken, but the memory retained a few recordings. He pressed play. At first, only static, wind, and faint mechanical noise. Then suddenly a man's voice, so familiar it made my hair stand on end. "I'll sign this staging invoice. Total is 180,000, but in reality we're bringing in less than half. The rest goes to Piermerk." It was Grant. Immediately after, a woman's voice cut in, sharp and decisive. 60-40 split, same as before. "Don't forget, I still have to handle the premiere night. If it goes well, the hotel contract will double." Mason stared at me, astonishment clear on his face. I clutched my bag, heart pounding. They had spoken too plainly. No more suspicion, this was evidence of falsified invoices and profit sharing. The audio continued. Grant's voice dropped, nearly a whisper. "What about that supplier? I don't want him running his mouth." Sloan laughed, the sound chilling. "Simple. We transfer the contract to a family company. He'll have no standing to speak out." Mason stopped the playback, turning to me. "You see, this is dynamite, not just financial fraud, but signs of contractor intimidation." I was speechless, my trembling hand gripping the edge of the table. Every word replayed in my head like knives, carving deeper into shattered trust. The husband I once believed in, the friend I once called a sister, plotting to silence a supplier as if it were nothing. I forced my voice steady. "Can you back this up? I need to bring it to someone." Mason nodded, handing me a fresh USB, his gaze serious. "Guard it well. And be careful." I left his lab after dark. Savannah's streetlights glowed against the rain-slick pavement, casting dim orange reflections. Sitting in my car, I gripped the USB as if holding my own fate. My phone buzzed. A message from Reese appeared. "Bring the evidence. Let them speak for themselves. The inauguration is tomorrow night." That evening, Charleston blazed like a festival. Streets leading to the central square were packed. Banners high on lampposts read, "Community Light Exhibition Opening, Coastal Arts Trust." Shops stayed open late, families strolled together. Children squealed, adults snapped photos. The joy was so overwhelming that I felt like the only one carrying a heavy secret, out of place in a radiant celebration. I arrived on time, seated in the guest section. Next to me was Reese Henderson, solemn, eyes fixed on the stage. On his other side sat an independent auditor he had quietly invited. Tension hung thick, like a tightened string waiting to snap. Grant walked out from backstage in a dark suit, broad smile, confident stance. The audience roared with applause. I followed his every move. This man had once been the center of my time, life. But now he was only an actor performing in the theater of his own lies. Sloan appeared soon after, striking in a red dress, holding a microphone, introducing the exhibition. Her image loomed on the giant LED screen behind her. I saw every detail of her triumphant smirk. Music swelled, the crowd hushed, lights across the square dimmed. The show was about to begin. I pressed my palm to the table, palms slick with cold sweat. Then, in the darkness, a sound played. Not the vibrant score they expected, but the music box's melody. That same tune, that same discordant note, screeching like a scratch across harmony. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Heads turned, confused. The melody lasted a few beats, then cut. And from the massive speakers came voices clear, familiar, bone-chilling. "I'll sign this staging invoice. Total is 180,000, but in reality we're bringing in less than half. The rest goes to Piermerk." The packed crowd froze. Gasps broke the silence, my own heart racing, torn between horror and relief. Sloane's voice followed, cold and sharp. 60-40 split, same as before. "And don't forget, I still have to handle premiere night. If it goes well, the hotel contract will double." Shocked cries erupted. People near me exchanged glances, suspicion etched on their faces. Then the next exchange thundered across the square. "What about that supplier? I don't want him running his mouth." "Simple. We transfer the contract to a family company. He'll have no standing to speak out." At that same moment, the LED screen lit up not with promised dazzling visuals, but with the video I had once watched in darkness. Grant and Sloan unloading crates stamped with the Foundation's logo at midnight, flashlights catching their faces, every movement exposed. The square erupted. Phones shot into the air, recording. I looked to the stage. Grant's face drained, his smile gone, eyes darting for escape. Sloan reacted faster, rushing toward the lighting console, desperate to cut the feed. Within seconds, the screen went black, the speakers silent. Chaos surged through the crowd. But Reese had prepared. I saw him pull out his phone, tapping quickly, his face calm, gaze fixed on stage. Moments later, as the audience still buzzed, phones everywhere chimed. Notifications lit up. Official live stream. Coastal Arts Trust. My breath caught. Reese had streamed the entire video and audio directly on the Foundation's public channel, watched by thousands remotely. Chants rose from the crowd. Answer us. This is our money. Explain, Grant. Sloan. On stage, the once proud pair now looked panicked, trapped in a storm of voices. The square became a sea of outrage. In my seat, my breath caught. There was no turning back. Their secrets, long buried, had been exposed on the very night they had dreamed would be their triumph. The uproar still rang as I stepped backstage. Police flashlights cut through the air, yellow tape stretched around the control area. Guards struggled to hold back reporters surging forward. In the tense chaos, I saw Grant and Sloan separated, each cornered, faces pale. Reese Henderson stood at the center, his commanding voice ringing out. The board has voted in emergency session. Executive Director Grant Mercer is immediately suspended. All accounts tied to Piermark are frozen. A criminal investigation begins tomorrow morning. Whispers spread like fire. I saw Grant's hand clamp onto a chair. Sloan spring to her feet, eyes blazing. You think I'll sit here and be humiliated? She nearly screamed. That evidence, where did it come from? From her. Sloan whirled toward me, finger shaking, pointing. Roxanne stole data, fabricated everything for revenge. The room crackled with tension. I heard murmurs, saw skeptical frowns. Rage welled inside me, but before I could speak, a woman's voice rang out clear, sharp as a blade. Wrong, Sloan. Every eye turned toward the doorway. Evelyn Hart, in a simple black suit, stepped inside. In her hand was a thick file, organized so precisely that each divider tab was neatly labeled. Evelyn walked straight to the table, set the file down, and spoke evenly. This is the complete chain of evidence. Bank receipts clearly list safety deposit box number 47, rented by Grant Mercer. Photos of the key and the deposit slip bear the name Sloan Pierce. Here is the warehouse lease, matching the address in the video. Here is location data confirming Mr. Mercer's vehicle moved on the exact night of the transfer. And finally, she flipped another tab, pulling out a comparison sheet. This inventory shows that the equipment purchased with trust funds does not match the goods actually received. Each document she presented landed like a hammer blow. I saw some board members nodding, others rubbing their chins, faces grave. Sloan stepped back half a pace, face pale, lips trembling. She tried to speak, but no sound came. Grant was different. He sat still, eyes dark, hands clasped so tightly they blanched. When Evelyn finished, he lifted his head and looked straight at me. It was no longer the proud gaze from the stage, nor the panicked look when the video had played. His eyes were cold, heavy with meaning I could not yet unravel. He leaned slightly, voice so low only I could hear. You don't understand everything. I froze, heart hammering. Those 4 words cracked open a door to shadows. What did he mean? That someone else stood behind it all? Or that this scheme was only the surface of a larger network? In the days after the chaotic opening, the city roared with news. Headlines splashed across front pages. Coastal Arts Trust under embezzlement suspicion. Executive Director Grant Mercer suspended. Piermark Company under federal investigation. But inside, I knew this was only the tip of the iceberg. Grant's whispered words, "You don't understand everything," stuck in my mind like a thorn, denying me sleep. Reese showed me the expanded audit report. Each line, each number cold, yet together forming a clear picture. Money from the Special Installations Fund funneled through Peermerk, then circled back as community art package rentals to a chain of luxury hotels. Most contracts weren't signed by Grant or Sloan, but by Arthur Dempsey, a regional director of Sterling Harbor Hotels. He was no stranger. Old records showed Arthur had been Grant's college classmate, same major in public administration. I remembered business trips with Grant years ago. He would half joke about Arthur, "That guy's got a knack for turning hard into easy." Now I understood his knack wasn't creativity, but building a system to launder money. The deeper I read, the more tangled the web became. Grant and Sloan were only two links. Behind them was an organized network, cloaked in the glamour of community art. One afternoon, as I wrestled with these discoveries, a knock sounded at my door. Standing outside was Mr. Walter, my father-in-law. He looked older, shrunken in a gray sweater worn down by the shock. We had never been close, but his heavy eyes made me unable to close the door. He stepped inside, sank onto the sofa, hands trembling around a frayed yellow envelope. His voice rasped, "Roxanne, there's something, I think it's time you had this." I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, the script soft, familiar. I recognized it instantly as Margaret's Grant's mother, gone 7 years now. My chest tightened as I read the opening lines. "If one day the little box I gave Roxanne is opened not for its tune, then it means what I feared most has come true. Your son never learned restraint. I saw the signs long ago, the ambition, the secrecy. I love him, but I fear him too. That's why I placed eyes and ears in the box. Not to hurt him, but so that if the day came, the truth would speak for itself." I read each word, throat tightening. Margaret, with a mother's intuition, had seen the shadows early. She left behind not only a keepsake, but a hidden safeguard, a way to protect truth, and to protect me. I looked up, eyes brimming. Walter avoided my gaze, his frail hands rubbing together. She doubted our son. But I didn't have the courage to speak. And now it's all too late. I clutched the letter, a deep sorrow mingling with newfound resolve. Truth wasn't only in invoices, but in the foresight and love of a mother long gone. In the days that followed, the investigation pressed harder. Federal prosecutors joined in, targeting the Sterling Harbor Hotels system. Every contract was pulled, every transaction examined. Grant remained silent, Sloan thrashed, but the evidence was too heavy. And I, though supporting Reese and Evelyn, kept a careful distance. This was not only a legal journey, it was my journey back to myself. Some asked me about my marriage, whether I would forgive or end it. I only shook my head. I could not decide while justice was still unfolding. I needed clarity before I could face my own heart. One evening I went to the Ashley River, where the sunset spread like gold across the water. On a wooden bench, the salty breeze running through my hair. In my mind, the music box's tune returned, but this time, the discordant note seemed to fall back in line. The sound no longer pierced, it warmed, like a sign I had reclaimed control. Stories like this always leave a silence hard to name. When trust is broken, when bonds that seemed unshakable crack under greed and lies, each of us must choose differently. Some forgive. Some walk away. Some fight until justice shines. And you, what would you do? If faced with that choice, would you keep silent to protect your home, or step into the light and let truth speak? Share your thoughts. Perhaps your answer will give strength to someone else who needs it right now. And if you want to walk alongside more stories of family, trust, and choice, follow this channel so you won't miss what comes next. Each new story is a doorway, bringing us closer through the real experiences of life and kinship.